So, Kevin Adler, founder and CEO of Miracle Messages, joins me now remotely from quarantine via Zoom. Thanks for being here, Kevin.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Good to be here with you, George.
So, I wanted to really start off with how has the COVID-19 epidemic impacted Miracle Messages reunion services?
Yeah, quite a bit. So, Miracle Messages is the nonprofit I run. We help people experiencing homelessness reconnect to their loved ones. Our core service for the last 5 years has been a reunion service. And what we found is with the shutdown in a lot of cities, their equivalent programs for family reunification have been shut down. So in San Francisco, as an example, Homeward Bound is the family reunification service. That's kind of been put on hold for the time being. And to take a step back of what that means, in San Francisco, a person who's in a shelter experiencing homelessness who has a successful exit to get housing, 30% of the time, that successful exit is as a result of Homeward Bound or family reunification. And so suddenly this program gets put on pause. You have all these individuals who are now being put into hotels. There's still a huge value and need to help them reconnect to family and friends. So Miracle Messages, our hotline, 1-800-MISS-YOU, has been increasing call volume significantly. We've had more and more families reaching out to us looking for their homeless relatives, because if you imagine, if you have a brother or sister or son or daughter on the streets right now, my gosh, like you want to know where the person's at, what's going on, how can you show up for them? And then maybe the one other thing I just mentioned, George, is a couple weeks ago, I guess 5 or 6 weeks ago, the head of the Department of Homelessness reached out and said, hey, you do all this great reunion service work using volunteers as digital detectives to find loved ones, make phone calls, reconnect people with their families. Could you mobilize your volunteers to help the people experiencing homelessness who are being moved into hotels, who are right now super isolated and lonely, through kind of a virtual buddy system? And so from that little germinated idea, we've now developed Miracle Friends, with the first of its kind virtual buddy system connecting volunteers with people experiencing homelessness being moved into hotels for weekly phone calls, text messages to provide general companionship and support. And so that's now live and has only come up in the last 5 weeks as a result of COVID-19.
And then I think the other two pieces that are part of your emergency fund is you've also been working with hospitals, as I recall, to help locate people, because again that's part of your service. And then the whole mass sanitization of people who are still living out in the open.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for bringing that up. So the hand sanitizer, the masks, the critical supplies, that was our initial response to COVID-19. So everything gets shut down. We don't operate a shelter. We don't have a soup kitchen, but a lot of our partners do. So suddenly they still have a huge and growing client load. We're able to kind of have some breathing room and, work remotely. And we're like, well, where can we add value to these partners? Because they're overwhelmed right now. And that's where we were working. We got about 125 shipments, deliveries, and procurements. And we're even creating our own Miracle Messages label of hand sanitizer with a local distillery that's repurposed their manufacturing processes to be focused on hand sanitizer instead of liquors and spirits. And then the hospital piece that you mentioned, George, is a really emergent program that we're excited about. Even before COVID-19, hospitals have kind of a term that they use, some variation of frequent flyers of the emergency room, or friendly faces of the emergency room. These are people often who are experiencing homelessness who use the ICU as a waiting room. So during COVID-19, as you can imagine, where every single bed is just mission critical, like you do not want someone staying in a bed any day, let alone hour longer than they need to, it becomes increasingly important to try to find next of kin for those individuals, find a support system, the emergency contact. So we've been starting to work with hospitals to do that. They're swamped right now. They got a lot going on. So it's really a matter of finding the right caseworkers, social workers, outpatient services and then connecting the service there. But yeah, working with hospitals to help people in the ICU reconnect to loved ones when they're experiencing homelessness is another service we've started to offer as well.
And so how can people actually get engaged with Miracle Messages? You know, I know you have a wonderful volunteer, especially your wonderful detective group. And then you've also set up, a monthly funding where you're trying to basically deliver care packages to people, socks and the like. But, in this time, and a lot of people have time on their hands, how can people actually help you and Jess and your volunteer army to reach more people?
Yeah, it's a great question. If you're interested to roll up your sleeves and be a volunteer, we would love to have additional folks volunteer to connect with their neighbors experiencing homelessness as Miracle Friends. So they can go to miraclefriends.org and learn more about that program and apply to be a volunteer. If they'd like to locate loved ones and be a digital detective for good, so making phone calls, writing letters, trying to find family members who might want to reconnect to a person experiencing homelessness, they can go through our Get Involved page on miraclemessages.org. And then beyond that, we're always looking for strategic help with, sponsorships, partnerships, expansion to new cities, fundraising, marketing, cross-promotion. So really, whatever your skill set is, and whatever your kind of network and time, talent, treasure, ties, kind of the 4 T's, just be in touch. I'm online, easy to get a hold of, but just through our website, miraclemessages.org, and we'd love to hear from you.
And then going back to the COVID-19 emergency fund, how are you guys doing with regards to, I know you're trying to raise funds to obviously do the mask and the sanitizer and do more outreach. Do you have an active campaign going at this point that people could go to?
We do. So they can go to miraclemessages.org/COVID-19, and that's where you'll see the emergency fund and kind of what that fund is used for. Admittedly, we're not the most talented fundraisers in the world. My uncle was homeless for 30 years. I got started in this work for him. Our team is a full-time team of 2 people. And then we have a part-time team of 2 or 3 people, and then a huge network of volunteers and advisors who make this work. So, for folks who do want to make a donation and support our emergency fund, where the money is being used to not only ensure, kind of the continuity of our core services, our staff, but also to fund things like hand sanitizer, to be able to facilitate these kind of Miracle Friends connections, they can go to miraclemessages.org/COVID-19 and support us that way. And we also have a fundraising link on our Facebook page, which is Miracle Messages on Facebook.
And, given that we're all kind of locked down, what would you and Jess and the team like to see on the other side of this? Like, what could be some of the best things that could come out of this, especially now that, it seems like we have more focus from the city and the state and the feds to some degree than ever before on unhoused community members. Mm-hmm. So what would you guys love to see come out of this?
Well, a couple things. So before we're out of this, I think there's some things that can be done while we're in this that aren't being done right now. So this is the best chance I've seen in the 5 years I've done this work for layering on other support services to a person who's experiencing homelessness that's temporarily in a hotel. So, people hear supportive housing first. Housing first is like kind of the, best practice for the country. Housing first is a kind of 5-pillared strategy in which secure housing is the first step of multiple steps that then follow. So now is a perfect time for harm reduction, for understanding kind of the drivers of a person's housing insecurity, for strengthening their social support network and providing kind of a buffer, accessing information, helping to problem solve. So I'd say number one is layering on support services to people in the hotels. That's one. Number two, right now, is it's a perfect time to be forming relationships with people experiencing homelessness through these tools that we're relying on to communicate with each other as housed people, right? So here's this moment where if we think about it, and we're honest with ourselves on this show, right, George? If we think about it, like, we were not interacting with our neighbors experiencing homelessness before COVID-19. Maybe you give a couple bucks on the streets, you say hi, you kind of smile. That's about it. Well, we're now in an instance where we're kind of isolated at home, keeping socially distanced from others. Our experience, and a person who's experiencing homelessness, though I wouldn't trade my situation for theirs by a long shot, there's a little bit more of a familiarity than existed before. There's a little bit more of like, yeah, I'm isolated too. I'm feeling anxious. I've been affected by this. I'm nervous. I don't know what's going to happen. My job's unstable, right? So I think that moment of shared experience provides a gateway to form connection and understanding and recognition. And that's where Miracle Friends is really trying to make the most of that, is to form those relationships. And that matters because once they, whatever comes after COVID-19 with the hotels and, the next stage of emergency housing or supportive housing, people are going to need friends and supporters and neighbors who stand up for them and know them and say, hey, it's not just we need to house the homeless. It's Joe. He needs to be in an apartment, right? And here's how he got on the streets. So that's what we're trying to build right now, is that relational piece and that kind of support services piece, so that when the hotel thing ends, there'll be more energy towards getting people permanently housed, which is, of course, what we're all after.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for sharing your team's work today. And we're going to make sure that the viewers have all your contact information, website. Thank you for sending all of that information as well. And, please, you, Jess, the whole team out there, because you're out there working, please stay safe. And I really appreciate all your work as we work our way through this. So thanks for the time. Have a wonderful weekend.
You as well. Thank you.